I don't think it's ready for membership in NATO. Holding NATO together is really critical. I don't think there is unanimity in NATO about whether or not to bring Ukraine into the NATO family now, at this moment, in the middle of a war.
When it comes to what will make this a successful foreign trip for President Biden and the allies, there are a few things that come to mind. One, if they are able to find a way to paper over, really come up with a fig leaf of sorts on that issue of Ukraine's NATO membership. There has been talk about maybe offering security assurances to Ukraine in lieu of actual admission. If they are able to at least find some way to signal that Ukraine will eventually be in NATO, if not while they're in the middle of a war with Russia. If they're able to come up with some real commitments in terms of defense products to Ukraine, those F-16s that the Ukrainians want training on very quickly, or other types of security assistance, that could be a win. And finally, President Biden hoping for a breakthrough in the next few days on the issue of letting Sweden into NATO. That was supposed to happen alongside Finland. It did not, as a result, partially of objections from Hungary and most notably Turkey, with a flurry of diplomacy over the last 24 hours or so, including President Biden speaking with Turkish President Erdogan on Air Force One on the way here. Secretary Blinken has been speaking with his Turkish counterpart, and the NATO Secretary General aims to bring the Swedish and Turkish leaders together for a joint summit with NATO Secretary General Stoltenberg in Vilnius to try to find a breakthrough. That would go a long way to show that the NATO alliance is holding strong and even expanding as we surpass the 500-day mark of this war. Joe and Mika.
All right. NBC's Josh Lederman live from Caddy Cay's Perch, as Jonathan Weir called it earlier today. Thank you so much for the report. We greatly appreciate it. David Ignatius, if you could repeat for our viewers in the 7 o'clock hour what you said last hour about the administration, specifically National Security Advisor, the confidence that we're going to be able to work out a deal with Erdogan and Turkey to get Sweden into NATO.
So I spoke with Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, at some length on Friday with a small group of journalists on this question: Will Sweden enter NATO, making NATO strong in a way it never has been? His answer was unambiguous. Yes, this is going to happen. It may take a little while. It could be resolved by this week because of the meetings that will take place between Erdogan, Biden, and others. It may wait some weeks more than that. But he had no doubt in his mind that it was going to happen. So I think that's significant. I think on the larger question, Joe, of this summit and whether we'll have unity among NATO allies, I think that there's going to be some difference about the timetable for Ukrainian admission. But I'd expect, an emotional embrace of our brave Ukrainian allies in this fight, commitments to them for additional weapons, additional support of all kinds. Thinking about Biden, the criticism of him that we sometimes hear as he heads to Vilnius, that he's not doing enough for Ukraine. Biden is elected president to do two things in this regard: help Ukraine fight off this terrible invasion from Russia and avoid World War III with Russia and the United States. Those are his two jobs. It's a delicate process, and so far as I think most observers can tell, he's doing it pretty well. It certainly seems that way. Ed Luce, let's talk about Biden's trip. And we know that he's met with the prime minister 6 times in 6 months. We don't expect a lot new from that meeting. But I was struck by the timing of Biden's the president's first visit with King Charles III, in that King Charles has bristled, according to sources that we know, that spent some time with the king, is bristled that he's not been able to be quite as active on environmental issues as he would like as king, as opposed to prince. But the timing, I would say, is fortuitous, is it not? That an American president's coming to talk to him a week after we recorded 4 of our hottest days since record keeping has begun.
Yeah, I mean, Charles has been focused on climate change, on the environment, since the 1970s, really since Biden became a senator. And Biden, of course, has a track record on this, too. they see very much eye to eye. And at the Climate Change Summit in Glasgow a couple of years ago, they spoke about it. Biden was very complimentary and said, we need you in this fight. And it's Charles's number one passion. Of course, as king, as monarch, you're not supposed to have views on anything. But the idea that Charles is suddenly going to disarm and decide he's neutral on whether, global warming is important or not is a little bit far-fetched. And so he is pressing on this issue. And that's pretty much exclusively what they're going to be talking about at Windsor today when Biden goes to Windsor. There's some tabloid nonsense, as there always is in this country, that America isn't paying enough attention to Britain. This is Biden's 5th trip to Britain in 2.5 years. I mean, I don't think he's been.
Okay.
I don't think he's been to any other country 5 times. So the sort of thin-skinned sort of neediness of the British tabloid media, I wish would just vanish. Unfortunately, it is a sort of background noise, but you should pay it no attention.
Yeah, I mean, these leaders
5 trips
have met 6 times.
My God.
In the past 6 months. And you've got a